Hello, everyone. I'm really honored to be here. It's going to be hard to follow that heart-rending discussion, but it actually sort of is a wonderful entree to my talk, which is kind of about similar subjects. So I was visiting with a primary care physician for myself. I'm terrible. I'm sure many of you are as well, about getting to the doctor, and I needed to have some preventative care. And I go to the primary care physician, and she's sitting behind her screen, clickety click, 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 click. And I say, I need an endoscopy. I have some GI issues. My doctor wanted an endoscopy. And I wanted to do it at a place closer to my home. And she is behind her screen, clickety click, clickety click, click. And she says, well, did anyone ever say the word Barrett's to you? And I was like, you understand I'm a physician, right? And she stops, and she clicks some more, goes to the screen with my social history, which the medical assistant took, and she says, oh. And this encounter is emblematic of some of the challenges that we're having in healthcare today. She was a caring and competent physician, but she was doing exactly what she was trained to do today, which is text while doctoring. She was behind her screen. She was not with me. So what we're going to talk about today is healing the patient, but also healing the provider. There's no doubt that we have suffering among healthcare providers today. And I'm going to tell you a path on the way, a way out. But first I have to tell you how we got there. So when we talk about physician burnout, it was defined by Maslick of professional feeling of a lack of accomplishment, emotional exhaustion, right? And the ante has been upped by certain commentators. This is Z-Dog. Many of you have probably looked at his videos. I think I would rock that fur. Immoral injury is the concept that came out of the military, where people were asked to do things that were against their deepest moral values. And today, the way that we often are required to act in a busy healthcare situation affects us emotionally, physiologically, behaviorally, and spiritually. There's no doubt that there is suffering in the healthcare fields. Our suicide rate is about a doctor a day. We have twice the suicide rate of the general population. So the suffering is real. In 2017, I was asked to join a randomized controlled study on chronic low back pain, where we compared an embodied mindfulness practice against an open label placebo injection by one of the top pain researchers in the world who happened to be down the road from me. They needed a proceduralist. It wasn't like I'm a private practice doc. But when they offered this, I said, yes, please. We did functional MRI before and functional MRI after.
It was described as a placebo, and it seemed strange to have an injection that you know isn't going to do anything to help you. But had the injection, and when I got home, surprisingly I found that my back was a lot better.
And then they had really sustained relief from me injecting 1 cc of saline through a diabetic needle. We felt that it was important in the open label placebo part of the study that we put all of the aspects of a typical clinical encounter around it. I wore the white coat. They did the check-in process. They donned the gown, because this was all part of the sacred act of healthcare that patients come to our clinic expecting. And I say this is sacred because what we do at the bedside, what we do in the procedure room, what we do in the clinic is truly a sacred act. I left academic medicine about 10 years ago, but I always maintained an interest in neuroscience. In the beginning of my career, I did inpatient rehabilitation, spinal cord injury, locomat, where we were on the frontiers of neuroplasticity. I've moved into musculoskeletal medicine and pain medicine, where we deal with negative neuroplasticity, central sensitization, where chronic pain turns widespread, overlaid with emotional suffering. Because I was involved in this study, I decided I needed some additional training in mindfulness, and I went to Emory University and participated in their cognitive-based compassion training, which is a type of meditation training that has to do with compassion and loving kindness. These are some of my classmates. The one on the right is a medical student at Emory. I started to think about this placebo effect that we were seeing in our patients. And I started to reconceptualize what that meant. Traditionally, it has been defined as a learning effect. What I was starting to realize, though, it was actually a connection effect. That patients come to us in their moment of suffering, and they're looking for a partner to help them cross the river of illness, the river of the illness experience, and return to their tribe. Because once they can go back to their tribe, they can connect with the people that they care about, the activities that they care about, basically what all of PM&R is about. Because the illness experience, of which we know is sometimes invisible, renders people other, isolated, shamed, and alone. They come to us for that connection to help return them to their world. One of the things I struggled with in this journey, though, is I knew the healthcare providers were suffering, but patients, their suffering seemed to have a more important moral cause. So how could I actually talk about these two things together? These are some drawings of patients from a psych ward at the turn of the century. And these are Yale medical students who were part of the human rights movement for doctors. It's really hard when the public hears Yale medical students talking about human rights. Not that it's not true, but we are very privileged humans that have probably a few more choices than sometimes our patients do. Then I encountered a theory, and it has a cute name. It's called GUTS. Generalized Unsafety Theory of Stress, GUTS. This is from Joss Broschott and Julian Thayer. And the concept is that you actually don't need a stressor to be stressed. We can ruminate about things and have stress without anything setting it off. In fact, our brains are wired to be fearful, to be afraid. And the only way that is suppressed by the prefrontal cortex is if there's a perception of safety. In modern healthcare, kind of the minute that you walk into a hospital as young trainees, you're told all the things that you're going to do to kill someone. And then you're paying this enormous amount of money to go through this training. And then as you're practicing, you're constantly getting a message that you're not doing your charts fast enough, you're late to clinic, you're this, you're that. Really, medicine isn't a very safe place for humans. We don't do much to support our junior attendings, our residents. We don't do much to support ourselves. The message in my practice is productivity, productivity. Just work harder. Just work harder. But we have a way out through positive emotional research. So when we connect with another human being in clinic, with eyes, with an open smile, with an open-hearted posture, etc., that sets off chemicals in our patient. It supports their oxytocin, it supports their central nervous system through vagal tone, and it also has the mirror social network. But interestingly as well, we now know that it's actually supporting our brain and central nervous system. So when you move to a compassionate, connected practice with your patients, you're helping them heal, but you're also inoculating yourself against that sense of unsafety in the world. And that's called a positivity spiral that over time, over the multiple times that you touch patients per day, makes a difference. I also think it's important that you bring this out to your staff. Every day when I go to my surgery center, we do a huddle. We talk about what our intent is. And our intent is patient-centered care. We all say that in a circle. And then we talk about our 3 pillars: safety, dignity, and connection. They've renamed this the Cuddle Huddle. Then we go around and we do a quick mood check. The mood check is actually a metaphor for safety, because if individuals are having a crisis at home, they can't bring their best self to their patients, to their partners. When we do that, we allow the team to wrap around them. And we bring safety to the clinic, to your team. So we now have ample evidence that a connected, compassionate encounter where you truly lean in with your full heart, that supports not only the patient's healing, we can get an additional 30% of patient outcomes with this, but also the provider as well. It's a way of making an island of safety in your practice. Does it solve all the strategic issues that we have in healthcare? Does it change Medicare? Does it change any of that? No, and maybe that won't all change during my lifetime in healthcare, but I can make an island of safety for myself, my patients, and my staff today, and so can you. Thank you.